Hello and welcome to We Random, the wonderful podcast where my buddy Brian and I sit around and we talk about random stuff that we throw on that wheel right over there. And we spin it around, we see what we're going to talk about. But before we do all that fun stuff, B, what did the horse say when he fell down? Help, I've fallen and I can't giddy up. I can't giddy, yeah. More right after this.
Almost Qualified Productions.
Let's get crazy!
Experts don't have this much fun.
Welcome to episode 53 of We Random. I'm Brian. That's Christopher. Say hello to the people, Christopher.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Now, as you all may know, we're entering fall. It's getting a little colder. Christopher, do you know where you should go stand if you're cold?
No. Where should I go stand if I'm cold?
You should go stand in the corner, because I hear it's 90 degrees.
Oh, dang.
Anyway, welcome to the podcast, everybody. As I said, I'm Brian, that's Christopher. We are here to bring you topics from our wonderful Wheel of Doom. For those of you who are veterans of the podcast, welcome back. For anybody who may be new, welcome. For those of you who may be new, we will go through a very quick recap of what we're going to do. So, Christopher, at some point, we'll spin that wheel. A topic will come up. We will discuss it. When we're done discussing it, we'll move on to a different topic. We'll do that for a good 30 to 45 minutes, and then we'll hit you with a random rankings. And for those of you who are watching here on this YouTube, Christopher, at some point, I don't know if it's going to happen this week, has the aspirational goal of giving you little timestamps. So if you don't want to hear me talk about Aaron Rodgers, I don't want to hear myself talk about Aaron Rodgers. You can look and see when we do that, and you can skip that. But please don't. We need your views. We need your listens. But we're going to try to give you those little timestamps so you can see what's going on. Christopher, did I miss anything? Any other things that we want to tell the people before we get started tonight?
No, but I'll let you know that the timestamps made their appearance on the latest, the latest podcast from last week. It's out there. It's live on YouTube. We got it out there.
Cool. Well, I guess the only thing we can do now on episode 53, the Brandon Woodruff edition, is get going.
All right, I'm spinning this wheel, bro. We don't got a lot of things on the wheel, but there should be some fun stuff and some angry stuff. And first, we're going to talk about Ric Flair, and is it Tommy Dreamer? Is that who it is?
Yep, Tommy Dreamer. So we're going to start by talking about some pro wrestling. So the latest episode of Vice TV's Dark Side of the Ring covered what wrestling fans refer to as the plane ride from hell, which involved WWE superstars flying home from a European tour in 2012. The episode details how a flight attendant who worked that flight accused Ric Flair of sexually harassing her after he allegedly stripped naked and began parading around the plane before cornering her. While fans were furious with the Nature Boy over these allegations, many were just as mad at wrestler Tommy Dreamer for the statements he made throughout the episode. Dreamer said, quote, "Ric Flair is not going to try to impose by force any sexual stuff onto anybody. He's just flaunting, styling, and profiling, doing the Ric Flair stuff, and everybody's going to laugh about it, but obviously somebody took offense to it." Dreamer, because, that statement wasn't enough, later criticized the flight attendant's decision to have her lawsuit against WWE settled outside of court, saying, if that's how she felt, maybe she should have not taken a payout and went to the fullest extent of the law to truly put this heinous person in jail. So, based on the episode, Dreamer has currently been suspended from his job at Impact Wrestling and the Busted Open podcast. Flair's current commercial deal with CarShield has been put on hold. For his part in this, Ric Flair said, "We'll see how this all plays out. I was there, and I don't care whose name I gotta drop if the heat falls on me. I know who was where and who did what. I know the whole story." Flair has also put out a statement saying that the alleged incident never happened. So I just thought that this was kind of interesting because this really does kind of it wades into a lot of the different topics that we talk about week in and week out in this podcast. It kind of wades into, male, especially like white male privilege. It wades into poor treatment of women. It wades into harassment. It wades into all of these things that we talk about in all of these episodes, right? And I have lots of thoughts about this one. And is it okay if I kind of get some thoughts out first?
Do
Usually
it, bro.
I'll throw to you, but I want to get some thoughts
This is all
out.
you. This is your area, man.
So first off, there are multiple things that can be true. So one thing that I feel like can be true is the way that we look at things in 2002 may be different than the way that we look at things now. That doesn't mean that the way that things were handled in 2002 were good or right or just. But I think why Tommy Dreamer, and rightfully so, is catching so much heat is this man came out in a year of 2021 and was like, well, if Ric Flair wants to spin his penis around to a woman, that's okay. No, that's not okay. That's not okay now. That wasn't okay in 2002. People thought it was okay in 2002 because that's the society that we live in. But at least now in 2021, we're at a point where we're like, well, that's probably not good, because there are still a lot of people that are out there like, oh, well, he's the nature boy and he can. No, stop it.
Yeah, there's a lot of ugly with this whole thing. So, I'm not a huge wrestling guy. We know that. I always loved Ric Flair, though. Not always. There's a lot of times where I really, really didn't like Ric Flair. But, he's a fun guy. He's the wheeling, dealing, rock and roll, stealing, whatever. I don't know what the fuck he says. But the way this whole thing came down, first of all, the way that Dreamer kind of laid it out was just not okay, right? He's just being who he is. It's perfectly okay. No, that's not the case. That's not how that kind of thing works. And then the way that Flair has kind of come at this doesn't really put him in a great light, honestly.
No.
It's like when the lamp gets broken in the living room and you ask your kid what happened and he gives you 73 different stories as to what happened. You're full of shit, kid. I know you're full of shit. You're full of shit. That's kind of the feeling I get from Ric Flair. And I mean, if you think about it, based on kind of the way that this, and I don't know anything about this flight other than what I've read in a couple articles, but I mean, it sounds like it's basically a party bus where people are just doing their thing and they're getting drunk and they're probably getting high and there may be sex stuff going on. It's just a huge party bus. Is it possible that one of these people who are on top of the world and they're used to people just bending over backwards and doing whatever they want, that they might have got a little bit crazy and stupid? Yeah, it's very, very possible. So just the way that he's come at it, 2 or 3 different ways, and I know I'm going to call out other people if they call out me, and nothing happened anyway, so I don't need to say nothing. It doesn't feel good.
Right. Well, and the whole thing too that really kind of chafed me a little bit is Tommy Dreamer's apology was basically the stock, I'm sorry if you were offended by what I said, not actually taking any ownership of the fact that what you said was hurtful. The fact that what you said is not the way that you as a person have said in your own words that you want to treat other people. So that's very contradictory, right? And
Right.
I think that's the most important thing, is that when people apologize, to give that apology to say, this is the intent that I had with what I said. Obviously I can see now that it wasn't taken in that way. Not to say, oh, well, I'm sorry if I offended you. That's not
Right.
appropriate. And again, there are people who are like, oh, well, this is cancel culture. It happened in 2002. You should just let him be. That's the whole thing with the Flair thing. It's it is what it is. But that's why I honestly think that Tommy Dreamer is catching the heat, because this man came out in 2021. This interview wasn't recorded in 2002. This interview was recorded in 2021. And this man doesn't come out and nope.
Yeah, and you know what? There's 2 things that you said that I think are worth getting a little bit angry about. So first of all, well, this was 2002 or whenever the fuck it was. Things were different back then. Well, you know what? Things were different in the 1950s too, but that doesn't mean that I can tell black people they can't drink out my water fountain, because that shit ain't okay. People accepted it back then, but it wasn't okay then neither. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, can we just cancel the fucking term cancel culture? Like, that's not what this is. This isn't cancel culture. This is accountability culture. That's what this is, right? It's like you did something stupid, really bad that you shouldn't have done, and now you're being held accountable to it. That's how it works, right? So whether Ric Flair did something stupid or not, I don't know. And whether he'll be held accountable to it and to what degree, I don't know that either. But let's just get rid of that term. That term is asinine.
Right. Agreed. But that, again, that's what people use. And this is I kind of want to save this for in case your favorite topic, Aaron Rodgers, comes up. Yeah, I was just going to make a comment about how people will use the term cancel culture, and they kind of relate it. It's used to like get clicks and to get people to engage and to get people to argue and to get people to get mad online, because that's what we like to do. So instead of getting mad online about this any longer, I propose that we move on to our next topic.
I thought I could right click and not start it right away, but I started it right away by right clicking, and we're going to talk about whatever UWM is. What is UWM? It's like UM? What is UM?
UM is the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
Oh, that place.
The University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee has completed an investigation into an offensive video shared among students. In the video, a freshman student was seen using derogatory terms for Black and LGBT individuals. In rendering their decision, the university says the video was made prior to the student enrolling at UWM, and the school has no power to discipline a student for actions prior to enrolling at UWM. The university did report that the individual in question has decided to leave on-campus housing and withdrew from in-person courses. Now, I will pull the curtain back for you, loyal listener, loyal viewer.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, wait, I got...
I'm going to pull the curtain back for you just a little bit. I know a lot about UWM. I'll tell you is they've done a really good job hiding this, because I didn't hear about it. I found it when I did the Google search for some stuff to talk about this week, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I could have asked my wife, and maybe she got an email about it, but I didn't hear about this, you know. But again, I think that this is your prototypical, and I didn't even watch the video. Like, I didn't go seek out the video. I don't feel like it's worth my time to, you know, give somebody clicks for that kind of thing, right? But my guess is that it's somebody from a community where speaking in those ways about those people is, again, it's the Tommy Dreamer epitome of, it's fine, this is just what we do, you know, and it's not okay. And obviously the university is going to do everything that they can to not get sued, right? So they're going to say, oh, well, because this didn't happen on camp. Like, so here's a funny thing, and I'm totally sidetracking, but we random. So one of my favorite academic policies is in regards to marijuana. So for federal financial aid, if you are caught with marijuana during the semester, you can be held liable and it can impact your financial aid. If you are caught with marijuana when the semester is not in session, you're fine. Like, these are some of the fun and weird and odd policies that universities all across the nation have. So it's kind of this whole thing of like, did this student do something that we would objectively say is probably not good? Yes. Is the university going to do anything about it? No. Is this person probably just going to self-select to go into hiding? Probably. So they just figure that's going to take care of itself.
So basically, the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee is saying that was 2002. We don't care. That's fine. It was okay back then. No, it's not okay. It wasn't okay when he said it. It's not okay today. And just because he said it, you know, a week before he showed up on campus doesn't mean that you shouldn't. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to kick the kid out of school. It doesn't mean that you have to, you know, hang him up on a tent pole by his underwear and make a, you know, a spectacle out of him. But it does mean that this gives you the opportunity to stand up and to make a point of this type of behavior happening. Hey, because of X, Y, and Z, this is why we're not making further, you know, we're not taking further disciplinary action against this person. However, what we are going to do is we're going to raise awareness. We're going to have an on-campus, not harassment day, don't harass people. I don't know what the term is I'm looking for there. We're going to have, awareness of marginalized people day, or, something, like do something. Instead, what it's going to come to is the students are going to have to march, and they're going to have to protest, and they're going to have to do all kinds of stuff if they decide to do that. And then maybe something will happen. The one article I was reading, which might have been the article here, there was a young student, and I don't remember what group that he belonged to. But his comment was basically, well, we got to make sure that they know that they can't get away with this next time. The fuck do you mean next time, dude? Like, to make sure they know now that you can't do this. Like, it's just, what the hell, man?
I mean, what's going to happen is at some point we'll get a 7-paragraph email about every diversity initiative that UWM is doing. And like, I mean, it's a societal problem, right? And I feel like the ideas that you've come up with are good ideas, and maybe I should pass them along, but it's a
societal problem because we don't act on it. It's a societal problem because we say, it happened a week too early. It's a societal problem because we're like, well, next time we'll deal with it. No. That's not how it happens. Like the whole George Floyd thing that happened. That's what needs to happen with this kind of stuff, right? Now, hopefully there's no more of that bullshit. We know there will be, but hopefully there isn't. But like, shit needs to change now. Let's start to make sure things change. Otherwise, in 50 years, I mean, I'll say we will be talking about this. I'll be long dead by that point, but people will be talking about the same shit in 50 years because we'll just keep pushing it down the damn road, and that's not acceptable. It's not okay.
Right. I agree with you.
All right. I got a little worked up. I'm spinning the wheel.
And you haven't cussed yet, I don't think. So.
A little bit. I didn't drop any big ones.
Hey, look at that. We're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks.
This is a good story, except that it's the Bucks.
Well, it is a good story, but again, there's also a twist depending on who you ask.
Oh boy, here we go. Let's do it.
So the Milwaukee Bucks have named Lisa Byington as their TV play-by-play announcer, making her the first woman to hold such a position for any team in North America's 4 major men's professional sports leagues. Byington has an impressive resume, having previously been the first woman to call men's NCAA tournament games. She also has done play-by-play for men's and women's soccer at the Olympics, as well as games in the NBA, WNBA, MLS, and college football's Big Ten Conference. The Bucks, to their credit, already have an in-house female sideline reporter, Zora Stevenson, who became the first female to provide play-by-play for a Bucks game earlier in 2021. So this is a very interesting story, and one of the things, I have really picked up on my Bucks fandom. So, like, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest mega fan, but like I've definitely picked up and I've followed things. And when Jim Paschke retired, a lot of people thought that Zora was going to get the job, right? Because they were kind of grooming her, they were putting her on broadcast. She is a person of color and all of these things. And then they hire a white woman, and there were people who were like, and then they were like, oh, that's interesting. But here's the thing. And, I have a source. I will not put him out here, but there's a source that I have who is in the news. And I asked him about it. I said, dude, what are your thoughts? And he's like, dude, it's a good hire. Everybody knows that her star's rising. She's a little raw, but they brought in the best female that's on the market, like, period. Like, she is the gold standard right now of female anchors. So there shouldn't be any anger or mistrust or frustration, because if they want Zora to succeed in this role, like, she is somebody that can make that happen and help that to happen too. Well, also, it's basically 2 people that can kind of expand their stars together, if that makes sense, as opposed to like her being like passed over, as some people might have said, right?
Sure. I think the most important part of this whole thing is when you referred to the sideline reporter, you specifically said reporter. The reporter. Oh, like you busted out your like Boston accent. New York
or Boston.
Yeah, the reporter. Yeah, so I understand both sides of this. Like, on one hand, this is a historic move, right? It's a great thing, By her resume, like, I don't know who this lady is, but based on her resume, she's more than qualified for this position. So yeah, give her an opportunity. I can understand completely people who look at it and say, well, wait a second. You had a woman of color who's already a part of your team, part of your broadcast, who's already doing work for you. You've given her all this different work and stuff. Why are you passing by her for a white woman? So I could definitely see people having that. I think that the person that you spoke to, whomever that was, again, a lot of this is how are you delivering that message, right? And some people are always going to say, you're just making excuses. You're blowing smoke up my ass, whatever the case may be. But I think if you have that conversation and say, hey, this individual we don't feel is quite ready for this position just yet. We hired this person, look at the experience they have, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to continue to, employ her. She's going to continue to be our sideline reporter. We're super excited. Reporter. She's going to be our sideline reporter. We're really excited about that. She does great work. We're going to be able to get her in, as a fill-in role, blah, 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 right? Like, there's a way that you can explain why you made the decision. I'm not saying that you make shit up to make people happy, just to placate people, but that you can explain why you made your decision in a way that helps people understand why the decision was made. Not everyone's going to be okay with that. Not everyone's going to accept that. A lot of people are still going to take the, yeah, that's just, the old white guy just giving an excuse why he hired a white person instead of a black person and or a person of color. I don't know what her ethnicity is, but, and there's always going to be some of that. But communication, man, that's what it all comes down to. Communication.
Yeah, and I just think it's so interesting because the guy that I talked to, his impression was like, basically, it's a win-win for everybody. Because if this lady comes in and she knocks it out in TBS or TNT or whoever comes and knocks on the door and says, hey, you want a job here? And she's a one and done.
Yep.
That's another year of training for Zora, right?
Yeah.
She's training under one of the best and things like that. So like, I respect his opinion, and I was like, I can get behind this. And obviously he knows people, so I don't know if he's heard that his sources or like what that's all about. But I just think it's really interesting. But I think it's really good for the Bucks in general that they said, we want to hire the best person for this job, whether they are male or female or, and they did. Like, if you look at this resume, I don't feel like you can say, well, it's not Joe Barry. Let's go there. This is not the Joe Barry of hires. And for those of you who do not know, Joe Barry is the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, who everybody looked at that guy's resume and said, oh boy, that was an interesting hire.
Yeah, and he's lived up to every fucking tiny piece of that. I'm gonna spin now because now you're talking about that and it's gonna make me angry.
And Aaron Rodgers is gonna come up and bet you.
Come on,
Aaron. Oh no.
We're talking about AI and the UN. That sounds like
Rodgers.
Something dirty. I know, I did too. That would have been perfect.
The United Nations has called for a moratorium on artificial intelligence systems like facial recognition technology that threaten human rights until guardrails are in place against violation. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has warned that AI technologies can have negative or catastrophic effects if they are used without sufficient regard to how they affect people's human rights. So, a report that was created by the Human Rights Council looked at how countries and businesses have often hastily implemented AI technologies without properly evaluating how they work or what impact they will have. The report found that AI systems can be used to determine who has access to public services, job recruitment, and they impact what information people see or share online. Faulty AI tools have led to people being unfairly denied Social Security benefits, while innocent people have been arrested due to flawed facial recognition. The report highlights how AI systems rely on large data sets with information about people collected, shared, merged, and analyzed in often opaque ways, where the data sets may be faulty, discriminatory, or out of date, which all may contribute to the violation of a person's rights. So, I will now immediately cede my time to you, Skonzii, Mr. Skonzii, the Information Security and Data Chief Officer of We Random. What you got?
Well, I don't have a ton to say about this just because we've talked about this a couple of different times, but here I think the angle I'm going to take is, and I'm going to rehash a little bit of what we talked about before. there's really two angles on this UN thing in my mind. So first, it is how these AI systems are created, and then it's also how these AI systems are being implemented, and not just the system, but I'm going to say the AI program, if that makes sense. The reason being, and we've talked about this a lot, so AI systems are inherently biased. And the reason why they're inherently biased is because they are programmed by people, and people are inherently biased in one way, shape, or form, right? Even if it doesn't mean that they're, assholes who are going to say Ric Flair just likes to whip it around and he can do that because he's Ric Flair. It's not that kind of bias being stupid, but, people see things in certain ways. People see ethnicities in certain ways. People see, everything in different ways. And so all those biases are ending up in the software. And let's be honest, a large percentage of the people who are working on these softwares are white guys. So you're going to have facial recognition or AI software that is geared towards the biases of white guys. That's just the way it's going to work, which is why if you look at any reporting anywhere, you will find that people of color are way disproportionately triggered off these types of AI systems, because it just doesn't, the biases of white guys isn't working for people of color. So that's part of it. We need to get a lot more diversity in the people who are working on these systems. That's one. Second side is, how are we implementing these systems? What are the programs that we're putting around them? So if we're using a system and we're saying, okay, we've got this great AI system and we're going to put it in the subway, and as soon as that thing hits, we're tackling someone to the ground and we're handcuffing them and dragging them to the station because this is a wanted criminal according to our AI system. Well, that's probably a problem, because we already just talked about the fact that they're inherently biased and they're not going to be very accurate. So how do we create a program that you can use these things, if we're going to use them at all? And right now, arguably, they shouldn't be used. But if they're going to be used, or once they do become a better tool, once they become less biased and more accurate, and we're putting them into place at that point, we need a program built around that makes sense. That's a sensible way of using that data. That data should not be the end all be all, and hey, we need to, tackle this person off the plane because they're going to blow up the plane. And, it's Bob's, I'm trying to think of an ethnic last name, who's, a doctor in New Jersey who just happens to wear a turban. And so, oh my God, he's clearly a terrorist. We need to stop him. So let's have a program built around that, on why we're using this information, how we use this information, how it's going to benefit us. And there's a lot of rules and regulations and, dare I say, policies and procedures that you're going to place around that, so that it can be useful, but it's not kind of that end all be all. So I think there's two sides. And now that I get done saying that, I said I didn't have much to say, but I kind of said a lot.
You did, but I think all of what you said makes sense, right? Because there are those multiple pieces to it. We had a conversation with a friend of yours, a couple weeks ago about exactly that, how, there are different pieces to it. Sometimes the software and the hardware that we're using, the software may be failed, or it might be the hardware. The hardware might not necessarily have the capability to do what we want the AI thing to do. So there's lots of different pieces and procedures and policies that need to be put in place. So I think this is just a good reminder that while AI is very useful and it can be very helpful, it has limitations when it comes to really identifying lots of stuff. Like, we can ask our home devices to do stuff, and that's not an issue, because if it doesn't turn on your lights, that only impacts you. But if you were to ask your home, like if we were to go on Nextdoor, and I'm a little bit nervous to say this, but I'm just going to say it, but it's like somebody on Nextdoor would be like, hey, home device, tell me if there's a person of color in my neighborhood, right? Because there are people on Nextdoor who would totally do that. I send you every week the people who are like, there was a weird person in our neighborhood, you better check for that. And then like 4 people are like, dude, that's the Amazon delivery driver.
he's wearing a jacket that says Amazon. Come on, calm down.
Right. But like, that's the whole thing. Like, we have to think about how we're deploying this technology.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I think we can get through all these topics, and I want to, so I'm spinning, and we're gonna.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. You wanted to talk about him earlier, so.
Well, I didn't necessarily want to talk about him, but then he was on McAfee's show today, and I thought he had a very interesting point that I want to talk about.
He always says great shit on that show. I need to watch that show because I think that's the one place where Rodgers is Rodgers, you know?
It is, yeah. So Aaron Rodgers, former Packers tight end, Jermichael Finley is grinding that axe again.
They fucking suck. He fucking sucks.
So Finley spoke about Rodgers' Week 1 performance, saying that he doesn't see that NFL hunger or the hunger to go win another championship. To Rodgers' credit, and I'm paraphrasing here, on the Pat McAfee show, he didn't necessarily call out Finley by name, but he did say about people in the media, he kind of basically said, everybody in the media feels like they're a celebrity now. So they want to say stuff to get clicks. They want to say stuff to get impressions. They want to say stuff to get people to engage with them so that they can overall grow their star. And he was kind of saying that in comparison to when he broke into the league in 2005, where like social media wasn't really a thing. And it's like journalists were reporting to their local newspaper. And it's like, you know, their goal was to get people to buy the paper. So how do you get people to buy the paper? You write like good articles and you get scoops and you do lots of things. Now, I think it's a very interesting conversation to delve into how the media has changed, you know, in 20 years. But I think do you want to go that route? Do you want to talk about Rodgers? Where do you want to take this?
Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, first of all, can we just fire Jermichael Finley into the sun? I mean, this guy was a waste of space as a tight end for the Packers, and he's been a bigger waste of space as a not tight end for the Packers. Like, this guy is just completely useless. And I'm really, really done. I'll be 100% open and honest and lay my vulnerabilities on and my biases on the table. Like, I am almost always going to err on the side of Aaron Rodgers. Like, I support the guy. He's not perfect. There's a lot of shit that he does that I don't agree with. He's certainly not perfect as a quarterback. But I'm going to err on the side of Aaron Rodgers more often than not. And the thing that's really irritated me is, did he handle everything correctly in the offseason? Maybe, maybe not. Like, we don't really know for sure because he never said a fucking thing. And yet everybody's blaming him for being the big bad guy causing all these issues. He never fucking said anything. He like specifically said nothing. He's just the fucking guy got married and went on a honeymoon and we're throwing a goddamn fit for Christ's sake. I mean, there's people out here, ordinary, everyday people who spend $50,000 that they can't afford to have a big shiny fucking wedding. This guy goes to fucking Hawaii and people are losing their goddamn mind. And then as soon as he comes back, what the hell is that? I don't know. Shut up. As soon as he comes back to the league, right? You knew as soon as that game didn't go the way we wanted it to against the Saints, you knew exactly what the story. Oh, he didn't come to the training. He didn't do this. That's why Aaron Rodgers so bad. He's horrible. I haven't been too sweary this episode, but go fuck yourself, people. Get the hell out of here. Because he did almost exactly in the offseason as far as working out for the Packers, as he does every single year. Last year he was the MVP and you were kissing his goddamn ass. And now, because he missed like one off-season workout that he might have had previously, it's like, oh my God, he's horrible. He doesn't care. He's stupid. You know what? Shut the hell up. Like, he had one bad game. The whole fucking team was bad. That defense couldn't stop a fucking peewee football team, for God's sake. And now, what are people going to say this week? I mean, he didn't have an amazing game. He threw 4 touchdowns, and the defense was fucking terrible again. The offense took a while to get started. He threw 4 touchdowns. So what? What do you think now, Jermichael Finley? Now is it? Oh, yeah, I could see the fire in his eye. Shut up. Get out of here. Like, I'm done with it.
Like, I really enjoy little bits, and like you said, maybe I should start watching his interview with McAfee, but I like how he kind of peels the onion layers back on McAfee, right? And he said a lot of very insightful stuff. Like, you get the sense that he's not a real big fan of how the media is today, and I think that played a lot into the radio silence over the summer. Like, he just let it ride and was like, y'all are just going to say whatever you're going to say, and it's fine. But I think that's a very interesting interesting thing. And I've heard this in other places, right? Where it's like Adam Schefter, sources. Like he's plugged in, but then he's also taking all of this information from these specific people. And like it's, I don't know, it's a very different ecosystem today than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And that was one of the things that Rodgers pointed out too. He's like, he said something and I forget exactly what he said. So again, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, if I come out and say, dude, we had a stinker, it was a bad game, we'll do better next week, that doesn't get any clicks. So everybody wants to figure out, what can I say or what can I take out of context to get my clicks and impressions and YouTube views and all of these things, right? So
there's a reason that Stephen A. Smith makes as much money as he does. And that white dude with
Skip Bayless.
Skip Bayless, right? These guys, and I don't say this, I'm very careful with my words here. Okay. They're fucking idiots. That's what I'm saying. They're like, all they do is they're loudmouth fucking guys. They yell and scream. They specifically pick super stupid angles, because then people are going to say, well, I mean, we're talking about him right now, right? People are going to tune in because, hey, guess what, Skip? You were fucking wrong again. And I'm going to watch because I want to see what you have to say about it. He doesn't care. Like, you're tuning into his show. His ratings go up. He's making millions of dollars a year. Like, that's all these people are doing. It has nothing to do with real journalism. It has nothing to do with real insight. There's nothing to do with actually learning something. It's just shock. It's what I call sports radio. Sports radio is all about that shock jock shit, right? Like, they get on there and they yell and scream. They make stupid statements. They make outlandish claims, and people listen to it and they get angry about it and they want to fight for it or fight against it. That's all this crap is. Like, I have no time for it. There's a reason why I haven't watched ESPN in like 20 years, because that's all it is anymore. And I have no time for it. I have no time for it.
Well, and it's interesting if you think about like your Schefters and your Rappaports and those guys, like, do you every once in a while get something like really good from them? Sure you do. But also, with their sources, they're like, they're putting out, oh, my source wants these people to know about this, or this person's agent reported to me that, like, it's kind of like you got to play the game, right? Because you don't want to be cut out of the loop. Because if you don't play the game, then you're cut out of the loop. And I think that it's just a very interesting time for journalism and media. And like, I am generally a pro media person. Like, I feel like people who do it well, but there are the people who are on the opposite end of the spectrum who kind of give it a bad name.
Yeah, I agree. All right, B, I changed my mind. I say we're gonna save two topics. I do want to talk about these topics though. So I think what we need to do, shameless plug, is I think we need to get together this weekend and we need to talk about these for our We Random Extra Time podcast. What we do every week, well, we haven't been every week lately, but what we do is we get together and we do an extra podcast for the people who are patron supporters. So Wiggum will probably throw the link up there because he's generally really good at that. If you want to support what we're doing here, and you support us via Patreon, you get access to that podcast. Sometimes we do video, sometimes we do audio. Sometimes the audio is just us, musing about random stuff that may or may not be good and you may or may not want to listen to. But there's a couple different ways that we try to interact with that. Your support is super appreciated, whether it's monetarily through that or just hanging out, just being here and going through chat. But now that I've said all that, B, do you know what time it is? Do you know?
It is time for Random Rankins.
There we go, Random Rankins. So if you're new here, Random Rankins is generally when we come up with some crazy ranking thing. What are the 10 best foods that you've ever had, or what's the best food at the Wisconsin State Fair, whatever it may be. But this week, Brian had an interesting idea. B, why don't you tell us about that?
So a couple weeks ago, we came on to the podcast, and it wasn't a podcast. It was just a straight stream where Skonzii and I talked for 45 minutes to an hour, and we answered some silly questions, and I thought that was fun. Let's do that again. So I pulled up a list that said, quote, fun questions to ask. And there are 25 questions on this list. So I figured what we'd do is we would randomly answer some of these questions. Now, if you in our chat want to pick a number and have us answer that question, please do. Otherwise, we can use a random number generator. And we'll do this until we decide we don't want to do it anymore because we random.
So I did put the link in the chat for everybody a little bit earlier so that you could get a head start on this if you wanted to take a look. If you've got, oh, look at that. Is that the right? Oh, that is the right link. Look at Wigs. I was just about to post it again. So if anybody's got a certain question, if you've taken a look at the list and you want us to cover a certain one, let us know. Otherwise, I'm going to create a random number between 1 and 25. Between 1 and 25. I'm going to spin it, and then I'll give it a couple seconds, and then if nobody comes up with one, I'm going to read this one right here. Ooh, this is a good one, B.
All right. Hit me.
Oh, Wiggs just came up with one, so we're going to save this one. This will be the next one. Wiggs chose number 8. What celebrity would you rate as a perfect 10? Ooh. I mean, can I just take the easy route out and just say Ryan Reynolds? Because I think everybody agrees Ryan Reynolds is like the epitome of everything, right? Can I just cheat and say that? Otherwise, you want to know who the first person was that came to mind? Honestly,
yes, I do.
Taylor Swift. And it has nothing to do with the fact that she's gorgeous, which she is, but she just seems down to earth and real, and she's like the type of person that I'd love to just hang out with. Like, and to me, that I've always been a person who thinks that your appearance is a small part. Your appearance is impacted for me based on who you are and how you look, right? So not how you look, but who you are, how you act, that type of thing. So you can take the most gorgeous person in the world and they can be a complete asshole, and I have zero interest on them, right? Like none. And these two individuals, and again, they're celebrities, so who really knows for sure? But both of these people they're fun, they're engaging, they're exciting. You know, Taylor Swift just seems super, super down to earth. I think she's got cats though, so that's a little bit. She's like a 9.5, I guess. But you know, so yeah, I just think that's the kind of thing. Like, just her personality is amazing in my book. Not that I've spent a lot of time, you know, watching her or whatever, but yeah, right. Little clips I've seen here or there. She seems like a really cool person.
Awesome. Yeah, so I like the first name that came into my head in an interesting way, and we're gonna stay in the wrestling lane.
Oh boy,
was The Rock. So
okay.
The thing about The Rock is, like, obviously physical specimen. So if you think about the physical part, like, he's got that down. But from what it seems like, and again, he's a celebrity, I don't know all of the things. It seems like he's out there generally doing good things, saying good things, contributing to good causes. Like, again, if he's not, I don't know about it, but he seems like the kind of person who takes time out of his day for other people, and he is willing to, but like, he's also one of those people who's like got his hands in everything. Like, he's got liquor, he's got movies, he's got this, he's got that. Like, he's doing it all. And you know, from what I can tell, like, a lot of it is good. It's not like he's out there being, you know, the celebrity that's like posting anti-vax memes on his socials or something, right?
Yeah.
But again, like, even if he is, like, he's not out there talking about it. So
no, I think it's a great point, and I would agree, but I do think it's important for me to say,
it doesn't matter what you think.
Just got to throw that out there. Okay, so the other thing I would add is, it's great when you watch his little videos, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or whatever, like where he just surprises people. The one that immediately comes to mind is he's driving in his truck and he's like, "Hey, I love these celebrity tours. They're always driving around my house." And he pulls over on the celebrity bus tours like, "Hey, have you guys seen The Rock?" And everybody fucking flips their shit. It's just, you know, it's the little things like that. Which is a great thing about Taylor Swift too. You see how many things that she does for fans, same kind of thing. All right. So the other one, when I did my spin, and also again, put it out there for you, chat. If you're looking at the list, there's anything you want us to get to, throw it in the chat. Throw it in right now, and we'll get to them in order. But the random spin that I did came up with number 24. What ridiculous thing has someone tricked you into doing or believing? And I'll go first. I'm going to cheat, and I'm actually going to say I'm actually going to give an example of a ridiculous thing that I tricked someone into doing or believing. And I figure it's perfect, even though I'm pretty sure he's not watching. I actually told this story at my brother's wedding because it was a perfect story. So, we were kids, and I told my brother, I'm like, do you know that you can do a somersault down the stairs and stop yourself? You can't, chat. You can't. So he did a somersault, slammed into the wall at the bottom of the stairs. It was fantastic. So yeah, so I'm gonna do it that way. What do you got, me?
That's ridiculous. I'm trying to think of this, and I'm sure there are lots of things that I've been talked into doing, as a young person and an adult. Nothing is coming to mind as horrendously egregious. I can just think of the stuff. There was a this is another. This is a tick. I gotta remember the story though, because it's not my story, but it was. So can I tell jokes about penises on the podcast?
Well, I mean, we've talked about worse, so yeah, go for it.
Okay, so there's a guy I follow on TikTok. His name is Officer Yudi.
Okay, I was making sure it wasn't me.
No, I do follow you on TikTok though. But he talked about something that he did with his kid, and he's like, I know I done messed up because I told my son that every time he lies, his pecker's gonna shrink. So whenever my son lies, he grabs his little dewlog. So I know that he's lying. and then one day we're at the store and he puts something in the cart, and I said, "Boy, did you put that in the cart?" He's like, "Oh no!" And I look, and he grabbing his little dewlog. But then cashier sees it and she starts laughing. And I start laughing. And then he looks at me and he's like, "Daddy, Grandma said that you lied a lot when you were younger too. So it's not surprising." So that dude is amazing though.
That's good.
I love his videos. So that's the thing that I could think about. You could teach your kids something like that.
That is awesome. I love it. All right, we got at least 3 questions piled up. One of them is, I would love you to wrap up with number 25, so we'll save that. Number 15 from Emily, what is your biggest screw up in the kitchen? I kind of want to make a joke using screw up in a different way, but I'm not going to do that. B, do you have an answer for this one? Otherwise, I got one on deck for the next 2.
Give me what you got.
All right, so calling this a screw up, it kind of was a screw up. I mean, it definitely didn't end up well. I didn't really know. Anyway, let me just tell you a story. So, when I was 15, 16 years old, something like that, my parents went out of town. I think that's when they went down to Chicago to do some modeling thing with my sister or something. I don't know. And I stayed home because I don't want to go do that shit. And my grandma came and stayed with us, and I wanted to make brownies. We had just a box brownie mix. And I was like, let's do this brownie thing. So I went to make these brownies, but I was like, well, shit, we ain't got no eggs. Can you still make it without eggs? I don't know. And so I made it without eggs. Well, you can't really make brownies without eggs, y'all. It just doesn't really work. If I told you it was hard as a rock, it would be an understatement. It was you literally, I had to take a butter knife and jam it into the damn thing. If I would have had a hammer, I would have used that. But here's the kicker to the story, is my grandma, who loved me to death, bless her soul, that lady still ate a brownie. Now, I don't think she made it through the whole thing, and she was just kind of nibbling on it a little bit. She'd like hold it in the milk for like an hour and a half, try to soften it up. Yeah, so that's the one. That's a great story. You know, that's one of those stories that I don't think about a whole lot. So I'm glad that came up.
That's awesome. So I have a couple stories. There are two that are Blind Man in the Kitchen, and then there's one that's not my story, but I feel like it's appropriate. So, Blind Man in the Kitchen. Number one, changing the filter for the water in your refrigerator. Never trust a blind man to change the water filter in the refrigerator. I don't feel like I need to say anymore. Number two, there was a time that I tried to cook something that required flour. In our kitchen, flour and sugar are right next to each other. Therefore, blind man cooked something with, I don't know if it was one way or the other, but it didn't end up going well. But here's the story that's not mine, but I also think it's kind of funny. So at my buddy's house, we're gonna grill out. His dad comes over with a beef brisket. He's like, yo, I need you to well, he didn't say yo, but he's like, I need you to put this on the grill. We're gonna cook it for 2 hours. Now, if anybody knows beef brisket, you ain't cooking a brisket in 2 hours on the grill.
No.
But his dad insists we gotta put it on there, we gotta turn it up, we gotta do whatever. So put it on the grill, turn it up, we all go inside. Like 15 minutes later, the neighbor comes running. Dude, your grill is on fire. Literally, we go outside. The whole grill is like straight up on fire. The nice part, though, well, nice, is that his neighbor is an off-duty police officer, so happened to have a fire extinguisher. So this dude comes over, fire extinguishers the grill. Grill is dead. Brisket's dead. And that was the end of our kitchen extravaganza for that day.
Nice. This is a good reminder for everybody. Make sure you have a fire extinguisher handy. For those who are not watching live and can't see Emily's story, I want to share Emily's story. Emily took a cheesecake from the oven and it burned her through the holder, crashes to the floor, and she continued to stand on the 400-degree crap, as she calls it, while trying to clean it up with her bare hands. All of that seems like a really bad thing. Move on to number 16. What is the worst commercial you recently seen? Why is it so bad? I'm not even going to stop talking because I have to answer this one right away. There is a fucking commercial with like a sun and some other thing, and it's the guy's like drinking the Coke Zero, and it's not a sun. I think it's an asteroid, and it's going to crash into Earth. And it's like, ah, and he's like, no, it's not so bad. He's like, ah, and he's like, no, you need to try it. He's like, ah, and he goes, no, you got to try it first. And then he slows down. And he goes, okay, I'm going to try it first. How fucking bad is your product that you have to put out a commercial that says, hey, at least try it first? I tried it and it's garbage. I'm still drinking it because, you know, I can't find another 0-calorie cola that I like. But it's the dumbest commercial ever. If you have to put out a commercial that says, hey, just try it. Oh my God, what a disaster.
Best Coke ever? I don't think so. Yeah, that was the commercial that I had. The one where they're like, best Coke ever?
Oh, God.
I think so. And I'm like, I don't think so at all. I mean, they're also like, basically, if you turn on any AM station radio commercials where they're like, come, listen, let's talk about the vaccine. And it's like,
God.
Nope. Not today, Satan.
Some of the weirdest commercials, and I love them to death. I'm a Nebraska Cornhuskers fan, and occasionally I'll listen to the radio, and they have all these farmer commercials. Which I mean, I live in Wisconsin. There's a lot of farmers here too, but it's like soybean commercials and fertilizer. It's just strange. It's just strange. All right, so I'm thinking we move on to the wrap up here. And then we jump into our extra time. You good with that?
I'm good with that.
All right. Old Man Wiggum says, finish it up with number 25. If you were given a 1-minute ad slot during the Super Bowl that you couldn't sell, what would you fill it with?
I would select a topic. I would just let you go wild for a minute.
Me?
just on national television.
Oh, that's gorgeous. I love it.
We would just send you right off the cliff. You would become a meme. You would be like so famous, and I would just be like, we could just do this. Like it would just be a 1 minute commercial for this podcast.
I love it.
I mean, I would lose my job because well, actually, no, I wouldn't. Actually, I don't know. Let me think about this.
I think you'd be safe.
Because I work there right now, so they could hold me responsible.
Oh,
and they'd be
dang.
like,
Yeah.
Zing! But
There we go.
you know,
My
I
first.
don't know. I would want it to be something positive, but part of me just wants it to be like a complete troll. Like, get the clicks, baby. Aaron Rodgers, we got to get them clicks and them impressions, and we got to do it.
So my first thought was a 1 minute dating ad. And then, and then,
okay.
and then
Before you go, hold on. I got it. So imagine, cutscene, picture, beautiful night in Wisconsin. The dusk, the sun is setting. All of a sudden, you see this man's feet. Them are some real big feet, but you see the feet, and it starts to come up. You see the legs. You see this chair, and all of a sudden, you see a big, long stick, but it's in his hand. It's a stogie. You see it. He's got the sunglasses on. He's just sitting there in the chair, and then he turns to the camera, faces that camera real nice, says, "Tell him what you say, Christopher. Let's go."
I don't know what I say.
I don't know. I was just setting you up. I was setting the mood for the commercial.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. No, the second thing I thought of was great big meteor heading towards Earth going, ah, and someone on Earth going, no, don't try it, it's horrible. And the meteor's going, ah, and they're going, no, really, don't try it, it's horrible. And the meteor's going, ah, and he's like, oh my God, don't drink this no matter what happens, it's the worst drink in the world. And the meteor crashed into Earth, we all die. That was the second thing I thought. But I think what I would really do if I had a 1 minute ad in the Super Bowl is I would do some sort of positivity message. Something, something about bringing people together, something, I don't know. I'd come up with something. I'd, get some really good ad agency or something to come up with something. But I think the one thing that we're missing in this world is positivity and togetherness. I think we need a lot more of that. So
what I'm missing is your 1 minute dating ad. We really just need the 1 minute dating ad. Like,
I mean, that is a pretty good one.
I feel like we need that.
Yeah, you might be right.
All right, so that for today is your random rankings.
All right, B. Why don't you hit us with your extra point? Oh wait, I need to change the camera over. You keep talking, I'll change it.
Oh, so today I did not have an extra point prepared, but then I went to a local retail store that rhymes with Chrome Depot, and I attempted to purchase an item. I looked on their website. The item said that they had over 100 of these things in stock. So I walked the 20 minutes to the store. I looked where the app told me this item would be. It was no longer there. So I go and ask a person, who asks the second person, who asks the third person, and they all go, well, it's supposed to be right there, but it's not there. And then I figured out where it was. It was packed up on a riser, 25 feet in the air, and they all go, sorry, dude, can't get the thing. So my plea or my ask or whatever you want to call it to you today is go the extra mile for people. Try to be helpful. Don't be the people at Chrome Depot.
Chrome Depot. I love it. All right, well, I don't have a similar story. I'm gonna go the real personal route with half my head off the screen here. So this is we're closing up. I think is this the last podcast we have this month? No, we got one more. We're closing up on this Suicide Awareness Month, and I only bring that up. Last week we talked about it. I talked about it in the extra point where I've been emotionally, mentally in the past, and it came up oddly over the course of this last weekend. So I was driving down south to meet a friend, who's helping me create he's building me a table, or restoring a table for me, and we're zhuzhing it up for my downstairs gaming area. And, is that kind of a pinnacle spot? So I figured I'd go down there and I'd help out for the day. And on the way, I'm just enjoying the scenery. I mean, I love driving, especially in areas that aren't super populated. I love to see the trees and the rolling mountains and all the scenery that, we have here in Wisconsin. And I just loved it. And it was so great. And as we're going, I had this sudden reminder. Now, I've made this drive 10 million times. This one was actually a little bit of a different route, but basically that same drive I've made pretty much weekly, except for the last year or so. It was basically weekly or a couple times a week for years now. And it just dawned on me how much I was enjoying the drive, how much I enjoyed the beauty, and just I was taking it all in. And it took me back to that point a few years back when I wasn't in as good of a spot. And I don't think I've ever told anybody this. I might have mentioned it kind of offhandedly once to a friend. But I spent most of those drives looking for outs, I'll say. So as I'm driving, I'll say, oh, that tree's like 3 feet wide. I bet you if I hit that at 70 miles an hour, that would take care of me. Or, hey, I drive by that school. It's a huge brick building. If I drive by at 2 o'clock in the morning, nobody's going to be there. I'll bet you if I step on the gas and I hit that, I'll be good to go. Or, hey, a lot of times when I come through this little ass piddly town, there's a train. Could definitely do myself in that way. These are the conversations I had constantly as I was making these drives. Just when is the day? When is the time when I'm just gonna yank the wheel and just be done? It was a dark period of my life. And it dawned on me this weekend that it's not that right now. Not to say that everything's sunshine and rainbows, because it isn't. But it felt very, very good that I was enjoying the beauty in the world and not just sitting in the muck of the world. And yeah. So I felt, because this is Suicide Awareness Month, and I've been pretty open with how I've been in the past, where I've been in the past, where I am now for the most part, I thought that would be a story that I should share. A friend of mine reached out to me today, actually, after he watched the podcast from last week, and said, hey, I saw your extra point, and I just want to check in. I want to see where you're at. How are you doing mentally, emotionally, physically? Where are you at? How are you doing? And I said, watch my extra point from this week. I think you'll like what you hear. So Jeff, if you're out there watching, which I'm sure you will be, there's your answer. So hopefully that's a good surprise for you. So that's what I got, B. Why don't you wrap us on up?
All right. Well, I am glad to hear that you are in the place that you're at. That's always good to hear. And if you want to find us, you can look at that nice graphic on the screen. I'm not even going to try to point to it because I will point the wrong direction. But you can find us here on YouTube. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursday nights. You can find Skonzii. You can find me here on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. You can find us on Twitter. Skonzii is at Skonzii. I am at LandmarkMKE. You can find AQ_PROD. You can find us in your favorite podcast app under We Random. As always, you can find Skonzii on Amazon Sidewalk. Other things that I can tell you are that if you have questions, concerns, issues, want to give us suggestions, want to yell at us because we didn't talk about the vaccine, you can direct all of that to your deleted items folder, because we don't want to hear that shit. Anyway, I'm Landmark. That's Skonzii. We will see you next week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And have yourself a great evening. And just because it was okay in 2002 doesn't mean it's fucking okay now. Woo!
I got nothing to say. Bye, everybody.